Okay, well, let's get into the layers then.
Pretty chill layers.
Yeah, the layers, I mean, there's not even a one right answer, right? I mean, again, probably a cave of some sort. But the interesting thing is, one, they will have loot to some extent. It may not be the best loot, but I mean, if they hoard things, there's bound to be something good in there, right? So, as a party, they might know, oh, there's a chimera, we want to go to its lair and get the loot. But this is the cool part. So, chimeras being territorial and being like prideful in that they deserve large stretches of land, their den, as you could call it, or lair, could be up to like 10 miles away from where a party actually encounters them. So a party may have a actually really tough time finding the lair of a chimera if they just killed the chimera, right? So the party might be like, we just killed the chimera, we need to find the lair, but it's like nowhere near here. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it may be a long tracking situation.
Yeah, honestly, like their lairs too doesn't even have to be like in like a cave. Like typical chimeras in like Greek mythology, they just like chilled in the plains.
Yeah, or like on the top of a hill,
yeah,
just
like,
looking down.
Yeah, like they literally just grab a bunch of crap. Like, especially the Greek ones didn't have like the dragon side, had like a snake, so because just hissed a lot.
Yeah.
But like on the dragon side, you might just see like if you're on your Pegasus, you might look down. It's like, oh wait, that's a chimera. Like middle of the field, you might see like some like random stuff. Like just a wagon full of stuff next to it. It won't have like a bunch of loot though. Like not like a horde. It kind of has like a little bit of stuff. I mean, maybe if the chimera was busy, it could like maybe like raided a village or something.
Mm-hmm.
It might have more stuff. But like, I would expect like think about like a wagon's worth of loot. Like might just have some random wagon where it just puts the stuff.
It's just
in.
How old is the chimera?
Yeah, exactly. And they don't really live that long too. Like for a monster,
I actually don't know how long
they
live.
It's like 60 years, 60 to 80.
Okay.
I mean, that's still pretty good, but like
pretty good for something that's so messed up.
Nope. Yeah, exactly. Like Lairs only live like what 12 years.
Right.
Yeah, but
that is a true chimera in a sense.
That is there are real chimeras.
Scientifically speaking,
there are real like chimera. I'm pretty sure chimera is another word for a hybrid. I'm not sure if it's Greek or.
Chimera is actually different than a hybrid, but if we want to get into that, we can save it for fun facts.
Yeah. But so basically they're horde. They can be on top of a mountain. They could be on a little island. They can be on a hilltop. They can literally be anywhere. Even like in like villages too. Like you're like, oh, what happened to this abandoned village? Boom, chimera on the building, fire, you're all dead. So they could be literally anywhere.
I mean, they probably will be in wilderness just because they don't get along with things.
Yes.
So they will fight.
Yes. And actually, like, in their lair, kind of like part of the fun facts, they will avoid some monsters. So, for example, you think, like, a chimera would slap a griffin, right? Like, griffins are like, oh, they're more animals. But, like, one chimera versus, like, a pride of griffins. So, let's say, like, a pride of griffins come by, the chimera they're out of there. They're gone.
They might be. It really will depend. So... I think we're about to get into this in combat strategies, but they can be very different depending on whether they're flying or whether they are on the ground.
Right. They actually want to be on the ground. Like let's say you rode in with your hippogriff. Hippogriffs only have like 19 hit points, so they're super easy. They would like rather be on the ground.
Yeah,
even though if they'll win, they'll be like.
All right. Well, with that, let's get into combat strategies. So I guess one thing to talk about, since we're already talking about it, is how they use their flight. And so their flight is never used as their main source of combat. They will use flight against ground enemies, but if it's possible that the fight will become one in which it's in the air, they're not confident enough. They're so awkward and
they're really shaky.
They're shaky flying. They're capable of flying. They just have no. Their instincts are not calibrated for it. So they just do not want to fly while fighting ever. So they will run away from the weakest thing to go to the ground.
Literally like harpies. They'll like just land and then just wait until they come.
Which is smart because they're formidable on the ground. So
they are very strong on the ground.
But they will use their flying in combat against things that aren't going to follow them into the air. So I'll just kick us off here. their typical first move. So if you're a party, if you're the DM doing it for a party, the first, it's likely that you'll encounter a chimera by it surprise attacking you from the air, because it has such large spans of territory. It uses its flight to scout the area and to hunt and to make sure nothing's impeding on its area. So if it sees you, it will likely see you from the sky. And so what it will do is, this is just the basic thing. I think the monster manuals might even just say this. It's in the sky. It swoops down and immediately starts with its fire breath. And,
trying to hit as many people as possible.
Yeah, and so that's how the combat will normally start. But it may land, and from there never fly again, unless it figures that the PCs can't fly, so it'll just fly up and do something.
Do another round.
Do another round or something like that, yeah.
It's actually quite interesting. So, like, we think as, like, a chimera, like, when they fight, they're actually, like, since they're so awkward, they're not really, like, prancing around like a lion, or they're not, like, jumping around or charging. They kind of just sit there, and then, like, when they come to them, their heads just lash out at them. So, like, if something comes from its from its right, its dragon head will bite that person. If it comes from the left, the goat headbutts that person. Right. So when you're the chimera, just think about spatial thing, like, oh, if someone's coming from his left, the goat head's gonna deal with him, not the dragon head. It's not gonna reach over. Like, that's odd.
That could be some detail.
So like some detail. So it'll use all of its multi attacks, and the lion head could go from right to left. You know, it can choose. But normally, it fights whoever gets closest to him. It doesn't even think about spellcasters. But if it does reach its, if the recharge for its fire breath comes back, it will get into position, so it might fly up and go on like a perch, or like a wall or something, kind of like hold there, shoot the fire breath, go back down. It's because it's actually tactical, and it wants to hit as many people as it wants with the fire breath.
The tactics of it, I do find a bit controversial. Like, a lot of people play chimeras, from what I can tell, in making them strategic, where they'll grab someone and fly up into the sky and drop them.
They would never do that.
Or go and grab rocks and throw them down, or just
they wouldn't
fire breath by, like, just doing a streak of fire that separates the party, as opposed to trying to hit someone so they can single out someone maybe. But, I mean, that's all smart, but they have an intelligence of 3. Like, although it would be cool for that to happen and it would make combat more interesting, the chimeras wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. They would just attack.
I mean, they do have a high wisdom. So, like, their only strategy is, like, if they get the fire breath, if it's ready, they're using it that turn.
Right.
So they might hit you, move, fire breath, move again, back to the person that was fighting, continue fighting. Yeah. You know, so its only strategy is it attacks. If it gets its fire breath, it's using it. So it might fly up, breathe, and then go and attack someone else randomly. You know, so like, and they actually prefer to attack the strongest. So if there's a barbarian in the group, the lionness of it will say, "I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna."
You think you're the dominant one?
Yeah, nah. Freaking comes in for the backhand.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think chimeras. So this is another aspect of how they fight, and this can make them actually pretty good for parties that are not really ready for CR6. So let's say the party is less than CR6. The chimera has this demonicness to it, where it likes to torture and it likes to play with its opponents.
Yeah, definitely have the chimera playing with people.
Yeah, and so although the chimera might be able to just win, it won't. Instead, it will, once it's like feeling dominant, it will start to like just do bad things. Like, it'll like really just scrape up someone's leg and like push them down, and then like make them just sit there in pain and like walk around. They might leave, come back later, so the party might get beat. As a DM, you might find that they are going to be killed by the chimera, but instead of having the chimera kill them, have the chimera have them wounded and then leave, just straight up leave, and then the party might be like, why did it do that?
Yeah.
And then, but knowing that it's gonna come back.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like they're actually they're so odd and they're so freaky. They're unpredictable. very unpredictable. So when they say like we talked about this earlier, but when they say they fight to the death, sometimes they're like, I'm out.
Well, this is interesting because it's like a paradox. If they are fighting something and they think they're gonna win, they might actually just not keep fighting. They might just leave for whatever reason. Maybe they just didn't feel like fighting anymore and they left and they'll come back later. But if they feel like they're losing, they will fight to the death. But again, it's how dominant that ghost head is. But they definitely are more likely to fight to the death if they're losing because that pride. You mean it's both goat and lion there. That's
so basically if you were to determine that if the dragon head takes kind of tells the other heads, dude, let's go, let's get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
I would roll a wisdom or an intelligence check. Make it 10 or 13. It's still pretty hard for the chimera to for that to happen. But if you do want the chimera to be because dragons are very self-preserving, they want to preserve themselves. So that dragon side will tell let's leave. But just roll that check. You can do wisdom because wisdom is instincts. Not just wisdom. It's
instincts can be a form of wisdom.
And so the dragon, its instincts is I'm gonna die. Why not fight another day and leave? But that's rare because the goat head and lion head are nah, get out of here.
So
as
make
the DM,
you have flexibility to kind of choose whichever one you think would be better for the story or whatever your situation is. If you needed to die, it totally is justified that it would fight to the death. If you needed to get away, totally justified. It's a little less justified, but it is justified. That
you should roll something to see if it does want to go away because it's very rare for them to do that if they're losing.
I mean, you can roll if you want, but I mean, this is just my preference as a DM. It's the story that's more important than the randomness. It is good to have randomness and maybe pretend you're rolling, but if it is better for one to happen, do it. In my opinion.
No, that's very true. I mean, personally, as me as a DM, I like the rolling stuff, but I agree. If the story makes sense for it to die or to leave, go with that option because it actually has a reason to do that.
That's what D&D is all about.
Yeah, so you literally have a choice. The dragon. People are chimeras don't do that. What's wrong with you? It's the dragon head thinks that way. So you actually have a reason. So because some of the creatures you would not have a goblin charge into battle with bravery and righteousness. Defending its own. Nah, he's out. You're not.
If someone does question your use of the chimera, though, don't respond because that gets into this cycle of people are just judging you on your decisions, and it's better to keep it mysterious. And they'll eventually be I'm sure there's a reason why, and they'll want to figure it out. They'll be why did the chimera run away? In reality, it's just because chimeras do sometimes. But in this case, they might be is there a stronger thing coming and it's running away from that? Are we about to get attacked by the Demogorgon? No. But something like that. So I guess this is a DM tip, which we're not in that section. But if someone is questioning what you did as a DM, don't answer them as the DM unless it's important. But be I don't know. Roll nature check to see if you know why.
Yeah. I think that's it for combat strategies.
Yep.
So the general summary: surprise them, fire breathe them, just full on attack them. Don't be strategic. The only strategic thing is that it wants to hit as many people with its fire breath.
Yep.
That's the only strategy it really uses. And if it's about to die, 80% of the time fights to the death. If it might leave the dragon head, but if it's winning, just mess with the people. It's
to make it more interesting, it will pull its punches.
Yeah.
So do that if that's what